Life is complex, so is our mental health. It cannot be understood by diagnosis alone. Our philosophy is treat the person, not the mental illness. Hi everybody, this is Trent Akers. Welcome to a new episode of Humanizing Mental Health.
And this is Jeremy Alcorn. Hello everyone.
Yeah. Today we're back with our friend Rod Dorn to talk about a very specific area of practice that he has a lot of experience with, but also within the general community may have a lot of myths and misconceptions about that. Rod, can you tell us about what that may be?
Thank you for having me here, guys. So what we're talking about today is an area of social work practice, mental health, within the criminal justice system, within corrections. Specifically, my experience is working with provincial corrections, which is a little bit different than federal in some ways, but the population is often overlapping between the two. So, but generally speaking, this is a population of people who have a lot of complex struggles, and a population I think would surprise a lot of people to learn more about.
Yeah, like as you bring that up, like and then as you say corrections, can you tell me exactly where along the stage of corrections you worked with people?
Yeah, provincial corrections here in Alberta, and specifically at the Medicine Hat Remand Center, that's where I spent the overwhelming majority of my time. So this is a remand population with a few sentenced folks, but so there's differences there. Remand is that they've essentially not taken a sentence. They've not taken a full sentence. They're actually sitting in on time that they're serving that they haven't necessarily been convicted or to trial, and they're working out some kind of a bargain or a deal. It gets a little complicated, but in any case, they're not able to be released because there's too many risk factors and other things that are holding them in the correctional center.
So it almost sounds like they're like in a little bit of limbo and almost like no man's land. Like, so their status, they're not like a member of the community. They've had some run-ins with the law, but they're not fully have the status of that you're a prisoner or a criminal.
In fact, I think this is a really great place to jump into where we're going. We titled this Kicked Out of the Tribe. And you're really mentioning what we're talking about with that. Like, this is complicated. If we as social workers with master's degrees need some education about how this works and what is it like for the person experiencing it, and the other part, and where I think we really want to have a sense of this process, is this idea of punishment, how that fits in criminal justice, and how this follows someone forever. We talked in previous episodes that mental health doesn't just live inside of us, that it's in our connections inside you, connections to a tribe, and connections to the world. And the criminal justice system actually interrupts every single part of that mental health process, but particularly the tribe.
Yeah, like as you mentioned that, Jeremy, like as you say, interrupts, I would almost wonder if it really severs. Like, how?
Yeah. No. And I can definitely speak to that. So what sort of I can say, generally speaking, is here's a population of people who have been thrown away, essentially. Thrown away because and not just by the judicial process, but if you look at their life, which I've been assessing their histories, what happened to them, and it's almost identical stories most of the time. What we're seeing here is a child who grew up in an unprivileged state where they weren't taken care of or they weren't treated well, and they were traumatized by that, and they believed that they didn't belong, and then it was reinforced through other systems in their life, not just the family system, but the education system, the system in which you get privilege and opportunities for employment and for connection to other community groups. What do you do when you're a hurt person and you're so hurt? Well, there's so many things that can sort of trip you up, and obstacles. How are you going to medicate that pain? Drugs and alcohol. Find similar people with gang affiliations where you can belong. You know, there's just so much to this, and I could just talk forever about the severed connection that you guys are really picking up on here.
Yeah, like as you mentioned that, like, you know, when you talk about like the gang affiliations, it's like they've been kicked out of the, like, you know, kicked out of the main tribe, not just when they went in, but a long time ago, and they're trying to cobble together a community with that primary narrative, that primary status that they've learned from all of these systems. So it's, what does that mean? If I'm going to be a criminal, then I'm going to or kicked out of the tribe. I don't mean to use that word criminal as a pejorative term, but if that's what they internalize, then I'm going to find other people that share that, and then how do we come together in that shared experience?
Yeah, the certainly they're looking for connection, and the message that they've received loud and clear is, you don't belong.
Yeah.
You don't. And we see that as we, you know, push all the services to downtown. We push all of the hot meal programs, counseling services, and other kind of social welfare programs and things. It's all funneled into this downtown area where that's where their community is, and they've found a community, and you know, these are good people. These are good people who want connection. Oftentimes, nobody's waking up in the morning thinking about how they're going to harm somebody or commit more crime. This is not what we're seeing here. What we're seeing is, how am I going to survive today? How am I going to connect today? And actually that leads to sort of this self-centered sort of survivalist, and people will get hurt along the way.
In fact, that last part where you talk about pain, people get hurt along the way. So I want to speak for a minute to the listeners out there that have been harmed. Maybe they've been assaulted. Maybe they have had their property stolen. Someone out there has done them wrong, and they feel that those people deserve to be punished. I want to speak to you for a minute, because your pain matters, and accountability does matter. And we want accountability. We want accountability to happen. And what we would suggest in terms of what accountability means. See, for these people that are involved in the criminal justice system, many, many, many of them, it is not their fault what happened to them. And this message is both for the person that has been harmed by somebody and believes they deserve to be punished, and it's also for the person that's been in the prison system and in the criminal justice system. That is, what happened to those people that are in the criminal justice system is not their fault. It is their responsibility to heal. Because whatever you don't heal, you pass on to other people. And I'm going to link this to Rod's previous episode. So in Rod's previous episode, his message to the world is, you don't have to be afraid of your pain. And so for those of you that are in that pain because someone harmed you, and that harm led you to harm other people and led you into the criminal justice system, then know that you still have to be accountable. And paying time is not how you're accountable. How you're accountable is creating a meaningful life.
Wow, that is a really powerful statement. And I'm wondering, Rod, like, as you hear Jeremy say that, if you were to when you were working with members of the population, what would it be like for them to hear something like that from an individual like yourself or like Jeremy that could be seen as a member of the system or as a representative of the system?
Yeah, I think actually there would be some jaws might hit the floor that somebody actually gets this, because I don't think they hear that very often. There isn't often an acknowledgement. Nobody listens. That's another common thing that I've heard from people mixed up in this system, is nobody listens, nobody cares. I've never heard that so often than the 4 years I lived in jail, worked in jail, didn't live there, but
Felt like it.
yeah, some days I did.
Yeah. So I'm curious with that. What was it like to because like as social workers we talk about in school, we talk about working with resistant clients and how to roll with resistance and various things. How did you create a bond or that ability to work with those individuals?
You're kind of down at a disadvantage from the beginning because there's already been a breach of trust. So you got to earn your trust, and that is keeping your commitments. That is actually caring. You actually took the time out of your day, extra time. You listened. These kinds of things. You understood. You attached to them in a way to try to understand their world, and that allows you the opportunity for a little bit of engagement, and that engagement might be the most therapeutic piece of that intervention, because what you've done is you've essentially built some connection, which is the root of the problem, is disconnection.
Yeah, and I mean, as you bring that up, like I'm almost going from my internal family systems lens, saying to myself, you're connecting with those exiles. Like as you said, you're creating that attachment bond, and I almost wonder, are you maybe one of the first people in their lives or in a great while that has actually helped them and seen them for who they are and really been there to be that container if need be?
I was in a unique position. I'm not going to take, hero credit or anything like that, but I was in a unique position where I was given the opportunity to sit with this and to listen and to understand this. And through that process, a lot of my misconceptions, misunderstandings were also, just to be able to have compassion and to listen and to give them a chance to speak and to hear their story. You get a different story. And that's an important story that needs to be acknowledged. How are we ever going to heal over this? How are we ever going to solve this problem of, however you want to call it, recidivism, homelessness, crime, this essentially this pain problem, this disconnection to the tribe, if we don't actually show some compassion, listen, and then allow opportunity for reconnection, participation, contribution to community, to belong somewhere.
Yeah, in fact, I'm reminded of the ancient peoples, the individuals that were foundationally tribal people, and the worst punishment possible was literally to be kicked out of the tribe. People could not survive without those tribal connections. And at the core of us, although we have different kind of shelter and different kind of technologies, actually we still have that as a survival instinct, and we're removing from these people the core of what it means to be human.
Absolutely, an emotional wound and an emotional disconnection can sometimes be even more damaging and more painful than a physical wound, because a physical wound can heal. An emotional wound sometimes can take years or never truly heal, depending upon if you're willing to greet that.
Yeah, there's some intricate challenges as well, because what this is a population who are hurt, and they're also extremely vulnerable and difficult to gain trust. And then you add this layer of dangerousness.
Yes, that's what I was thinking too. It's like you read my mind. It's like we got to help these people so that we can help them, the people that they're going to hurt.
Yeah.
Our responsibility isn't just to the individual, it is to the tribe.
Yeah.
As a therapist, our responsibility that is to the individual and to the tribe at large.
A punitive system is not working towards restorative or reconciliation, healing. It's practically pouring gasoline on a fire to put it out. Like, it doesn't actually work. It just creates more pain.
Until all the wood's burned.
Yeah.
Whole world burns down.
Yeah.
And so a restorative system says, hey, I've got compassion. I care. I want to connect. I want to help you. I want to restore or reconcile something. I want to acknowledge you. I want to care. And if we can build enough trust, they could care back.
Absolutely. Like as Jeremy brought up tribal peoples, I'm almost thinking of, and I'm not meaning to say I'm an expert of any stripe or really have a great amount of knowledge, but the Aboriginal justice systems that they've tried to restore and about how they approach justice, like where it's about the community and about like recognizing that hurt, but then also trying to bring the community back together.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's probably a good place to pull things together, is that notion of restorative justice, and that there are systems that have existed. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Mm-hmm. There's already a healing circle. It's a wheel.
Yeah.
You just read my mind.
Yeah, we don't have to reinvent the wheel or put spikes on the wheel. We're all rolled together. We just have to return to what we know and trust what we know. Trust the tribe.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. No, I love the idea of a circle, right? Because we can circle back. We are in a linear system where we are marching people literally in an opposite direction where they can never return. And this is not a solution.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. I really appreciate you joining us today. I think that there's some very important things, and I'll just reflect again on that one point that I made earlier, that this is actually about true healing. And true healing is both about the individual that harmed the person and the individual that got harmed. And if we want true justice, it means the individual who has created harm has a new and meaningful life in which they stop harming people and they start having a meaningful existence in society.
Yeah.
So thanks, everyone, for joining us. Until next time, this is Jeremy signing out.
This is Trent signing out.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope that this message has been as meaningful to you as it has been to us. If you're looking for help, you can find us on Facebook at Humanizing Mental Health.